God text found at Qumran. This is the 4Q246 fragment. Very interesting text. It refers to the Son of God. And it's officially called the Apocryphon of Daniel. It's a vision of the Son of God. The surviving text consists of 2 columns of fragments, and they've got a good picture of it on page 335. This reveals interesting parallels with Luke 1, verses 30 through 35, including the titles Son of the Most High and Son of God. This is what the angel tells Mary. The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. Therefore the child to be born will be holy. He will be called Son of God. That's in Luke. Well, 2 translations have been presented that they present, and then they discuss the various aspects of whatever the identity of this ruler may be. 3 phrases correspond very closely in Luke and the Qumran passage. The phrases are, will be great. The other phrase, he will be called Son of the Most High. And the third phrase is, he will be called Son of God. Now, John Collins comments, it's difficult to avoid the conclusion that Luke is dependent in some way, whether directly or indirectly, we just don't know, but on this long-lost text from Qumran. It's very interesting that perhaps some of the gospel materials is based upon what we have in the Qumran writings. Well, now this, as Dr. Flint told us in this discussion, he says, my friends, I'm giving you pure dynamite. He has a wonderful South African accent. I can't possibly imitate him. I wouldn't want to. He's a great scholar. What John J. Collins has noted in his materials in his text, The Scepter and the Star, The Messiahs of the Dead Sea Scrolls and Other Literature. This is by Doubleday, published back in 1995. It's one of the most extensive look at the Messianic angle in the Dead Sea Scrolls. He notes in chapter 9, this is on page 195, there appears to be evidence, there appears to be enough evidence that we've been able to sift through the various documents and texts in antiquity of 4 distinct Messianic paradigms in Judaism around the turn of the era. The king, the priest, the prophet, and the heavenly Messiah, or the Son of Man. These paradigms were not always distinct. Priestly and prophetic motives merge in the expectation of the eschatological teacher of Qumran, for instance. The heavenly Messiah can appear in the form of a national king. This is how Philo portrayed Moses as king, priest, and prophet. So these composite figures are exceptional, however. So it's interesting how the contextual data on the Dead Sea Scrolls is showing us that there is much more complexity to this entire Messianic idea than we have heretofore supposed. And this is part of the important implications of becoming familiar with the literatures of antiquity, with the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Nag Hammadi codices, but especially the Dead Sea Scrolls at this point. Joseph Fitzmyer, in his very excellent, superb text, The Dead Sea Scrolls and Christian Origins. This is the series that's edited by Dr. Flint and Martin Abegg Jr., The Studies in the Dead Sea Scrolls and Related Literature. This is by Eerdmans 2000. Fitzmyer just does an enormously very impressive work. Chapter 4 on the background of the Son of God as a title for Jesus. And there is he's just got a lot of stuff, the Old Testament data bearing on the title Son of God. He discusses the council of the gods and the angelic councils. He notes on page 66 that on occasion collective Israel itself is spoken of in the singular as Beni, that is, my son. Very interesting. Oh, and then he describes the various father-son relationships between, the idea of a divine sponsorship. Support or assistance for the king, and he uses David as the prime example of this, of course. And if the righteous man is God's son, the huios theo, he will help him. That's in Wisdom 2:18. I find that on page 67. He's describing the various the point he's noting is that this title, Son of God, is not in and of itself a necessarily messianic idea. And he's trying to be cautious and yet explore all of the issues. And I really appreciate that about Dr. Fitzmyer, because his scholarship is so powerful, it's so wonderful, it's so inclusive, and yet he's trying not to jump the gun. He gives credit where credit is due. He shares where he disagrees with some other scholars in certain interpretations, and he shares where he agrees or disagrees with others all the way along. And I really do admire his scholarship, just like I admire Dr. Flint's scholarship. Dr. Flint has put together some pretty good materials about various aspects of the scrolls that are worth looking into. I'm trying to find my source here. Okay, this is the Mystery and the Meaning of the Dead Sea Scrolls by Herschel Shanks. This was also put out by, let's see, this is Vintage Books 1998. So this isn't that old. He is describing this. Son of God he will be called, and Son of the Most High they will call him. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all of his ways will be truth. He will judge the earth in truth, and all will make peace. The sword will cease from the earth, and all provinces will worship him. The great God will be his patron. His sovereignty is everlasting sovereignty. Wow, I mean, this text just blows you out of the water, doesn't it? This is on page 69 and 70 and 71. He also has a picture of the Son of God text on page 70 in his book. But wow, this has remarkable parallels to the Annunciation scene in Luke. Both texts maintain that he will be called great. He will be called the Son of the Most High. He will be called the Son of God. And his kingdom is going to be everlasting. This appears to be a divine sonship, you see. And there's almost no way to avoid the conclusion, is there? Divine sonship is present in the Dead Sea Scrolls before Jesus is declared the Son of God. Well, this shouldn't be surprising. Shanks shows that Roman emperors were regarded as sons of God. However, the difference is they became sons of God only with their induction into office. This is the difference between the Roman rulers. So this is an early instance of the divine right of kings. Being the Son of God signified a monarch's special relationship to God rather than his lack of an earthly father. So you remember, Jesus' genealogy is traced through Joseph, yes? Yeah. Well, God was also Israel's father. You are my God, thou art my Father, my God, the rock of my salvation. That's Psalm 89. Thus we are all sons of God. Now there's a doctrine. We are all sons of God. More specifically, Israelite kings were regarded as sons of God, and this is Psalm 2:7. This is the one that Fitzmyer explored extensively. These instances of sonship are what scholars refer to as adoptionist. God adopts a human being as his son, who henceforth has a special relationship with God. Sonship in this sense, of course, has nothing to do with the physical descent. Well, the Son of God, referred to in the Dead Sea Scrolls, called 4Q246, he will arise in the future as a messianic king. See, this is an extension anticipated in both 2 Samuel 7 and Psalms